I want you to picture something with me for a moment. An MRI scan glowing faintly on a black screen, slowly pulling back and back and back until that single brain becomes one small square in a mosaic of 250,000 others. That's not a metaphor. That's the actual archive I've spent the last 40 years building, scan by scan, patient by patient, in the quiet hours after clinic hours ended. And somewhere inside that mountain of data, I noticed something I wasn't looking for. There was a small group of patients, people in their 70s, even their 80s, whose hippocampus, the seahorse-shaped structure that holds your memories together, looked biologically 15 years younger than the number on their driver's license. 15 years. Let that sink in for a moment, because in 35 years of clinical medicine, I have rarely seen a single number carry that much hope inside it. So naturally, I did what any obsessive researcher would do. I went back and I looked at what these people were actually eating. Not supplements, not miracle powders shipped in from overseas. Food. Ordinary food chosen with extraordinary consistency. And the same small handful of items kept showing up, plate after plate, meal after meal. I want to be very clear with you before we go any further. I am not here to sell you a miracle. I don't believe in miracles in medicine. I believe in mechanisms, and I believe in evidence. What I am here to do is translate 40 years of peer-reviewed neuroimaging research into something you can actually put on your breakfast table tomorrow morning. Because I know the fear that brought some of you to this video. It's not really a fear of dying. It's the fear of forgetting your grandchild's name. It's the fear of walking into a room and not remembering why. It's the quiet dread of losing the person you've always been, one small memory at a time. I need you to hear me say this clearly. Your brain is not aging on autopilot. It is listening to every single choice you make. And today, I'm going to hand you 7 of them. In 35 years of treating patients as an internist and nearly 40 years of studying the brain through imaging, I've learned that the organ sitting behind your eyes is nothing like the fixed, unchangeable machine most of us were taught to fear in medical textbooks decades ago. We used to believe that once you passed 60, the brain you had was the brain you were stuck with a slow, inevitable decline, like a candle burning down with no way to add more wax. I want you to unlearn that today, because it simply isn't true. The modern science of neuroplasticity has shown us again and again in labs at Harvard, at Stanford, at Johns Hopkins, that the adult brain retains a remarkable capacity to build new connections, protect existing ones, and even generate new neurons in the hippocampus itself well into your 70s and 80s. But here's the part your 15-minute doctor's visit rarely has time to explain to you. Neuroplasticity is not automatic. It requires raw material. It requires the right biochemical signals delivered consistently, meal after meal, day after day. Every bite you take sends a message to your neurons, a message that either supports the delicate membranes surrounding each brain cell, calms the chronic inflammation that erodes memory, and feeds the blood vessels that keep your hippocampus supplied with oxygen, or it does the opposite. This is why, when I went back through that archive of 250,000 scans, I wasn't looking at genetics. I wasn't looking at income or zip code. I was looking at plates. And what I found was consistent enough and strong enough across enough peer-reviewed research that I can now hand it to you as a protocol, not a suggestion, not a fad, but 7 specific foods with 7 specific mechanisms, each one a building block your brain is quite literally waiting for. So let's walk through them together, one at a time, exactly the way I would explain them to my own patient sitting across from me in my office. Let's start with the first food, and it's one I bring up in nearly every consultation about brain health. Fatty fish, salmon, sardines, mackerel. 2 servings a week is the target, and I want you to understand why this specific number matters. Your brain is nearly 60% fat by dry weight, and a significant portion of that fat is DHA, an omega-3 fatty acid that forms the actual structural membrane surrounding every single neuron you have. Think of DHA as the mortar between the bricks of a wall. Without enough of it, the wall doesn't collapse overnight, but it slowly loses its integrity, its flexibility, its ability to send signals cleanly from one cell to the next. The Framingham Heart Study, one of the longest-running observational studies in American medicine, followed thousands of participants over decades and found that higher blood levels of DHA correlated with measurably larger total brain volume and better performance on memory testing. That's not a small finding. That's a study spanning generations of families, and it points in one direction. Now, let me tell you about Eleanor. Eleanor was 78 when she first came to my office, worried because she'd started forgetting where she'd parked her car, forgetting appointments she'd written down herself just days earlier. We made exactly one significant change to her diet. Salmon twice a week, nothing exotic, nothing expensive, just consistency. 8 months later, her family told me she was the one reminding them of birthdays again. I can't promise you that exact outcome. Medicine doesn't work in guarantees, but I can tell you the mechanism behind it is real and it's measurable. Right alongside the fish, I want you adding blueberries or any dark berry you enjoy, blackberries, dark cherries, about half a cup daily. These berries are rich in compounds called anthocyanins, and what makes them remarkable is their ability to cross the blood-brain barrier, that highly selective gatekeeper that keeps most substances out of your brain tissue entirely. Once inside, anthocyanins act as powerful anti-inflammatory agents directly on brain tissue. The Nurses' Health Study, tracking cognitive function in tens of thousands of women over years of follow-up, found that higher berry intake was associated with a delay in cognitive aging of up to 2.5 years. 2.5 years of sharper memory simply from a fruit you can find in any grocery store. Here is your synergy tip for tonight. Take a small container, add a handful of blueberries, and place it right next to your morning coffee maker or your medication organizer. Somewhere your eyes land automatically EV. The third food on our list is one I consider the foundation of the entire protocol. Extra virgin olive oil, about 2 tablespoons daily, used as your primary fat source. This is the cornerstone of what researchers call the mind diet, a way of eating specifically designed and studied for its effects on brain aging. Inside that golden oil is a compound called oleocanthal. And what fascinates me about oleocanthal is what laboratory studies have shown it can do. It appears to help clear beta amyloid, the sticky protein plaque that accumulates between neurons and is closely linked to the memory failures we associate with Alzheimer's disease. I like to describe this to my patients using an image I think about often. Picture your brain's cleaning crew, the one that comes through every night while you sleep and washes away the metabolic debris your neurons produce during the day. Oleocanthal helps hand that cleaning crew better tools to do their job. It's not a cure, and I would never tell you it is, but it is one more piece of raw material your brain is asking you for. The fourth food works beautifully alongside it. Walnuts, just a small handful daily, roughly 1/4 cup. Walnuts are unusual among nuts because they contain alpha-linolenic acid, a plant-based omega-3, along with a dense concentration of polyphenols. The WAHA trial, one of the few large randomized controlled trials specifically testing walnuts and cognitive function in older adults, found that consistent daily walnut consumption was associated with a measurable slowing of cognitive decline over the study period. This is not observational guesswork. This is a controlled trial, which in medicine carries real weight. I want you to picture your nightly brain cleanup crew again, because that's exactly what's happening while you sleep. Your glymphatic system flushing waste out of brain tissue, the same way a river carries debris downstream. Olive oil and walnuts together are giving that river crew cleaner water to work with and better tools to work faster. Here's your synergy tip. Keep a small jar of walnuts on your kitchen counter. Not in the pantry, not in the fridge, somewhere visible. So that handful becomes as automatic as taking your morning medication. Small, visible, consistent. That's how a habit survives past the first excited week. The fifth food on our list is one I probably underemphasized for the first 15 years of my career. And I regret that because the evidence behind it is some of the strongest we have. Dark leafy greens, spinach, kale, collard greens, just 1 cup daily, cooked or raw, whichever you actually enjoy enough to eat consistently. Inside these greens is a trio of nutrients working together: folate, lutein, and vitamin K1, and each one plays a distinct role in protecting the aging brain. Folate helps regulate homocysteine, an amino acid that, when elevated, has been linked to brain shrinkage and impaired cognitive function. Lutein, a compound most people associate with eye health, also accumulates in brain tissue itself, where it appears to support neural efficiency and processing speed. And vitamin K1 supports the sphingolipids that make up a significant portion of your brain's white matter, the wiring that allows different regions of your brain to communicate with one another. The Rush Memory and Aging Project, a long-term study following older adults with annual cognitive testing and dietary tracking, found something that stopped me in my tracks the first time I read it. Participants who consumed roughly 1 to 2 servings of leafy greens daily had rates of cognitive decline equivalent to being 11 years younger than those who rarely ate them. 11 years from a vegetable most of us were forced to eat as children and quietly abandoned as adults. I understand the resistance here. I hear it in my office constantly. Plain steamed spinach is not exciting to eat 3 times a week for the rest of your life, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. So here is your synergy tip, and I want you to actually use it. Stir a handful of baby spinach into whatever soup, stew, or scrambled eggs you're already making. It wilts down in under a minute. It changes the flavor almost imperceptibly, and it means you never have to sit down to a plain green side dish you're dreading. Consistency beats intensity every time, and this is the easiest way I know to make consistency effortless. Now we arrive at the 6th and 7th foods, and I'll admit these are the 2 that make my patients smile in disbelief when I first bring them up, because for once, I'm not asking you to give something up. I'm asking you to add something you might actually enjoy. The 6th food is dark chocolate, at least 70% cocoa, just 1 square a day. Inside that dark chocolate are compounds called flavanols. And what's remarkable about flavanols is that researchers using advanced brain imaging have been able to measure in real time an increase in cerebral blood flow, specifically to the dentate gyrus, a small but critical region inside your hippocampus responsible for encoding new memories, the very first step in turning an experience into something you can recall later. More blood flow to that region means more oxygen, more glucose, more raw material for the neurons doing the hard work of laying down a new memory. 1 square, not the whole bar, and not the milk chocolate loaded with sugar sitting on the grocery store shelf. I mean, real dark chocolate, 70% or higher. The 7th food pairs beautifully alongside it. Green tea, 2 to 3 cups daily. Green tea contains 2 compounds working in tandem, EGCG, a powerful antioxidant, and L-theanine, an amino acid with a uniquely calming yet alertness-enhancing effect on the brain. Together, researchers studying cohorts across Japan, where green tea consumption is part of daily life for millions of older adults, have documented meaningful neuroprotective effects and improvements in sustained attention among habitual drinkers. I think about Walter here, a patient of mine who told me for years he didn't believe in tea. We made 1 small trade his afternoon soda for a cup of green tea, and nothing else changed in his routine. 18 months later, his daughter told me he was doing the crossword again, something he'd quietly given up 2 years earlier. I can't attribute that to tea alone, and I never claim a single food works in isolation, but the mechanism is real, and Walter's willingness to simply try it is what made the difference. Here's your synergy tip. Pair your square of dark chocolate with your afternoon cup of green tea the same time every day, right after lunch. 2 brain protective habits stacked together, sharing one moment in your day you'll actually look forward to. Before we close today, I need to talk to you about the other side of this equation, because adding 7 protective foods means very little if we ignore the 2 things quietly working against you every single day. I call these the silent memory erasers, and I chose that word deliberately because neither one announces itself. There's no immediate pain, no obvious warning sign, just a slow, cumulative erosion happening in the background while you go about your life. The first is ultra-processed snacks made with industrial seed oils, the chips, the crackers, the packaged pastries sitting in that middle aisle of the grocery store. These oils, when consumed in excess over years, promote a state of chronic low-grade inflammation throughout the body, and your brain is not protected from that inflammation the way you might assume. Inflammatory molecules circulating in your bloodstream can compromise the blood-brain barrier itself, the very gatekeeper we talked about earlier that's supposed to keep harmful substances out of your brain tissue. Once that barrier becomes compromised, your neurons are exposed to a level of oxidative stress they were never designed to handle. The second silent eraser is added sugar consumed late at night, that bowl of ice cream, that plate of cookies after dinner, when your body's insulin sensitivity is already at its lowest point of the day. I think of insulin as a messenger knocking on the door of every cell in your body, asking to deliver glucose inside. Late at night, your cells are slower to answer that knock, so sugar lingers longer in your bloodstream. And chronically elevated blood sugar has been directly linked in research spanning decades to a smaller hippocampus and measurably worse memory performance over time. I'm not telling you to eliminate sweetness from your life forever. I don't believe in that kind of restriction, and frankly, I don't think it lasts. I'm asking you to move it earlier in your day when your body is actually equipped to handle it, and to reach for whole fruit instead of refined sugar whenever you can. Your brain is not aging on autopilot. Every fork you pick up is a vote for the person you still want to be at 85, remembering the names that matter most to you. So let's bring this all the way back to where we started, that image of 250,000 scans and one small, quiet truth hiding inside them. The people whose brains looked 15 years younger weren't extraordinary. They weren't following some rare, expensive protocol available only to the wealthy or the well-connected. They were simply consistent day after day, meal after meal, with choices that were well within your reach starting tonight. That's the entire philosophy I've built 35 years of practice on, and I want to leave it with you exactly as I say it to every patient who sits across from me, frightened about what's ahead. Aging is not your destiny. It's a series of small daily negotiations between you and your own biology, and you have far more leverage in that negotiation than anyone has ever told you. You deserve that effort. You deserve the version of yourself that still remembers the sound of your grandchild's laugh 20 years from now. So here are your 3 actions starting today. First, go to your kitchen right now before you forget and set out a small container of blueberries or berries next to your coffee maker for tomorrow morning. Second, add fatty fish to your grocery list for this week twice and pick a day to actually cook it. Third, choose one silent memory eraser we talked about today, the seed oil snacks or the late night sugar, and simply move it earlier in your day or set it aside for tonight. That's it. 3 small votes cast today for the person you want to still be. I want to hear from you. Leave a comment below telling me your age and the health concern that's weighing on your mind most right now, because I read every single one and it shapes the videos I make next. If this information mattered to you today, subscribe to this channel, because what I share here you will not find on the evening news or in a 15-minute office visit. And if you know someone you love who's struggling with their memory, someone who's scared the way you might have been scared before this video, send this to them tonight. That small act might be the window of opportunity they've been waiting for. I wish you health, I wish you clarity, and I wish you many more years of remembering everyone you love. I'll see you in the next video.